Peace. Yeah, so this video pretty much is going to answer the question, how can I get started on the herbal path? Working with herbs, working with plants. So I got 3 things to talk about, my top 3, and I want you to stay tuned to listen in on how you can get closer to plants.
Boogie down botanicals. Oh yeah, whoa, whoa, ow, ow. Herbs in a bundle, herbs in a bunch. And if a small parcel, the vibe still a punch. Boogie down botanicals, yeah. Herbs for the people, huh? Boogie down botanicals. Whoa yeah, whoa, whoa yeah, whoa.
Alright, so the first thing, number 1, is I like to start off with the phrase, become the earth you walk on. And I have to give props to Indigenous Remedies, which is the school where I became a community herbalist, and that's actually their phrase, become the earth you walk on. Just check them out, irherbs.com. Gotta give them shout outs. That's my foundation, my herbal foundation. But become the earth you walk on pretty much just means to, becoming one with your surroundings and really paying attention to those plants around you, because herbal medicine is simply the plants that are around us, right? Sometimes they're not around us. We may get dried herbs and they're dry formed in tea bags, but you have to think about their origin, where they started. They all started as a living being, as a plant, as a tree, as a shrub, as a vine, as a flower, or many different parts of the plants we utilize for herbal medicine. So start off with looking around in your surroundings, see what's out there, and no matter where you're at, you can be in the big city, you can be in the country, you can be in the desert. Keep an eye open and see what you find. And also, when I started my journey, I was in New York City in the winter time, and everything was dormant, and there was a lesson to be learned in that alone. Everything was dormant, so as winter slowly progressed and went away and springtime came, I got to see a lot of those plants that were dormant actually come out in the springtime and start sprouting up, and summertime, some of these plants coming in full bloom. But I really had a deeper appreciation for these plants and just for my surroundings, because I saw those cycles that they went through the different seasons, right? I saw the changes that they went through. I can recognize some of those plants when they didn't have flowers, for example. A couple of those flowers would be like the dandelion. Also red clovers. Red clovers, you recognize a lot of the plants based on, when their flower pops up, but actually paying attention to the different seasons and paying attention to these cycles, it helped me in my identification of plants, especially, when maybe only the leaves are present, for example, right? So I can see these different patterns. I have a lot more respect for their life cycle as a plant. And not only that, you start making the connections between the cycles of the earth, which are like the seasons, and then you make the connection between the herb cycles, the plant life cycles, and then also your own cycles. Because us as humans, we are very cyclic beings. We have cycles within ourselves. Some examples of that would be like, the women, we have our menstrual cycle, the birth cycle, and then just every day we have our cycles. There's certain times of the day that you may feel certain ways, or there's certain trends throughout the month or throughout the year as the seasons change, like your different cycles that you go through, which ultimately affects not just our physical being but our mental state as well. So become the earth you walk on, paying attention to everything around you. Observation is one of the best teachers, and really paying attention to those cycles. So that's number 1. And guess what, the best thing about it is it's free. And check out some local parks. If you don't have a lot of plants in your area, check out a botanical garden. You can start there and get a little book. One of my books that I highly recommend, one of my favorite books, is called Wildflowers of North America, and I'm going to show you a little clip of that real quick. And it pretty much has the different regions of North America, whether you're in the desert, the Pacific Northwest, the Southeast, etc. And it talks about a lot of those common plants and those common wildflowers that you'll find. And it's really exciting to pay attention to your surrounding, but then actually see in a book some of those plants that you've seen on your journeys, and you start making those connections, and you're able to identify plants by their, not just their common name, but by their Latin name too, just because you started paying attention, and that's really how I developed my sense of knowing, my sense of plant identification in the wild. So that's a great start. So try that out, okay? So number 1, become the earth you walk on. Number 2 is something that is so important, and I feel like it's so underutilized. So Number 2 is speak with your elders. Speak with your elders, and it doesn't have to necessarily be your elders. When I say speak to your elders, just speak to, elderly people who have been on this earth a lot longer than you have. Chances are, even if they haven't used herbs or plants themselves, they can recall a moment, or they can recall certain instances where someone they knew or in their household actually used traditional remedies. And a lot of times they have their own remedies, and sometimes they just haven't used it in a long time. Comes up a lot. I'll speak with people and they'll say, man, we used to do that back in the day and it really worked. And it's like you're bridging that gap. And plus you can get a lot of cool recipes as well. So utilize and tap into your elders, whether it's your grandparents or somebody else's grandparents. If it's somebody that just you see out and about, you spark up a conversation. I've been there before, but that's a great way to really tap into herbal medicine and to learn. And it's a practical way, because a lot of our elders, and especially our ancestors, they use herbs in a very practical way. And that's one of my favorite things about herbs. They can be very complex, but they can be very practical as well, and very useful, especially for the household and for the family. And also, herbal medicine is one of the oldest forms of medicine in the world, if not the oldest form of medicine. And when you really think about that, it's been around for a long time, right? So there's a lot of different aspects of it. There's a lot of stuff to learn. The best way to start is to talk to people. And one last thing I want to say is, talk to your own family, write down those recipes, preserve that so you can pass it down. But also when you speak to other people, other elders, you learn from other cultures. You learn other applications of similar herbs that your family may have used, but in different ways, right? So that's a very interesting thing as well. So number 2, connect with the elders, bridge the gap between the youth and the elders, and pull it all together and preserve that knowledge, okay? The third thing I think that has been very critical, or not critical, pivotal or big for me on my herbal journey is, I like to, this is a phrase that is somebody actually said to me a while back, some years back, and it really stuck with me, and I started applying it to my herbal journey. And that phrase is, experience the simplicity of the complex, okay? And what I mean by that is, number 1, herbal therapy, plant therapy can be very complex. The rabbit hole goes very, very deep. There's so many different aspects to it. Number 1, you can just look at plants themselves. We can study the anatomy, physiology of a plant alone by itself. And then we realize that a plant's physiologies and anatomy and just being, it's just like us. We have a physical aspect. We have also an energetic aspect. They're spiritual beings as well. It goes deep. There's the astrological alignment of the different plants, and there's a different traditions from around the world of herbs, right? So there's just so many different aspects of plants, and like I said, it can be very complex. There's the chemistry of plants, the constituents, and the different constituents of the plants, how they work together synergistically to help facilitate healing. But within all that, there's a simple aspect of herbalism, and that's something I encourage people to start diving into. And that simple aspect is pretty much, going right into the kitchen, paying attention to some of those herbs that you already have, some of those herbs that you probably already use, and some of those herbs that you have in your kitchen or in your spice rack that you don't use but you can start using. Also, when you go to the farmer's market or when you go to the grocery store, you probably notice that a lot of these herbs that you hear about, or a lot of popular herbs, for example, ginger root, right? Onion, garlic, all these things, you can find them right there in your produce section, right? And you can buy them fresh. You can grow some of them easily in your windowsill or at home. Or you can just buy them as spices. You get a good quality spice, you can use these as medicine as well, right? You can make teas from a lot of these infusions. Cinnamon is a great example. Cinnamon can be useful to treat a lot of different imbalances at home. It can help regulate blood sugar levels. It can help in cases of diarrhea. And there's always cases where you have to be careful. Obviously, yes, you have to be careful because, herbs do have contraindications, but if you use the herbs as medicine and you incorporate them into your cooking, into your food, and you work with them in a way that preserves their healing qualities, or you can just make a simple infusion or tea with them, with simply boiling the root or getting some hot water going and drinking the brew that way. So pretty much go in your kitchen, see what types of herbs you have right now, and what type of healing spices that you may have that you may be able to work with. One of my favorite, by the way, I have to mention this, is cayenne pepper. Cayenne pepper is one of my favorites. It has so many different uses, and I'm going to do more videos on how to use those herbs to apply them practically as well. So I promise you that we're going to definitely talk about that. I'll probably have to do a separate video completely on my top, maybe like my top 5 culinary herbs that I use, and then maybe something on how to prepare them in a simple way. But right back down to it is, you got to experience the simplicity of the complex. Get in that kitchen, see what you have, start working with them little by little, and until you build up or start a program or work in the community, work with a program that you feel comfortable with, and go from there. So there you have it. That's my top 3 on how you can get started right now on your herbal journey. So I really hope that was beneficial. I hope that helped out. If you have any questions, or if you want to see anything else in regards to herbalism, go ahead and leave it in the comments. I'd be glad to hear from you. And yeah, let's do this thing together. All right, peace.